Hey everyone, it's Coach Johnson, and in this video we're going to do a quick power position analysis. This is Brant Ralph. He's a high school freshman, and the key thing that we want to look at is if we look at his throw here, okay, he is not, notice the position here, so he's got this, the path and the rotation here is solid, but what didn't happen and what needs to happen to do a stand throw properly is you want to set the angle first. So if you notice where he's here, there's shift when you go from the left to the right. One of the things that we teach in our system and generally prefer, especially with younger throwers, is to avoid that kind of step in. What we want to do is see the weight pretty much more loaded here. As you can see, the weight is really more loaded here. And so what he does as he transfers, he doesn't really come back over this. And one of the ways you can see that is that if you look at the position of the knee, right, let's look at his hips are probably here, here's this femur, here's the leg, and here's that power position. So you can see, and then from that point his spine would be coming up here, and obviously his head sitting, well, I didn't draw that on very well. His head is here, okay? So you can see that what you need to look at and what's really critical is to always set the angle first. So this is why we like to have throwers starting on top of the right, so that way when you do create a little bit of the shift here and back over, you get more of an angle that's going to look like this. The knee is going to be, well, let me redo that. The knee is going to be here. You're going to see this, okay, up to, boy, let me do this. Here, here, okay. Nope, I'm not doing it. Here we go. Let me get this drawing down. Okay, so what we would want to see is we would be setting the knee. The knee would be out to about there. It's not exactly what I want to see, but so you'd look like this. You'd have the hips. You'd see the leg down here. You'd be like this, okay? And you would see the spine more here, head here. Okay, so see how it would elevate him a little bit? So that way as he came down, he would be in that position, right? He would rotate in there. And then the shoulder and ear, okay, would be sitting, you can see, out over the knee, right? That would be where the shoulder would be. But instead, again, we're looking at Bob, right? He's here. There's not a lot of bend or load in that foot. Spine is kind of there, okay? And again, you're seeing that he's bent over. So again, if you look at the difference in these two angles, right? Here, I'll put his head on just so we're clear, but we're here. So you have more of that type of a position versus if you look at the green targets, he's going to be loaded over the right knee. And even if you're gliding, right, you have to create the motion, the rotational motion. Is still, even though it's a very linear movement, the hip and knee have to come around into the throw. So at this point, you can see that his hips are just going to slide. And the key to throwing anything far is going to be to have that kind of orbit. So even though, again, the glide is much more linear, you're still going to have to get the heel elevated, and that's going to drive the knee around and down, right? So the elevation, you're creating that rotation. That there's still a rotational axis even in a glide. Again, it's a much more linear movement because you would see a push, but again, you can see that the heel comes up kind of late. He does a decent job blocking, but here's where you can see everything is too far extended, right? You see that leg, and what we would rather see is we would rather be looking at the foot being a little higher, the knee being here. Okay, it's probably a little more like that. Let me clear that. So it'd be, foot would be up, knee would be here. You would get the hip more in this rate. You'd see the spine up here. You'd see the head here. Okay, so then you would see the block leg hitting more this way. You'd be driving the right hip around more, so there would be a lot more power coming from the ground instead of the shift, and this extended leg is just this very mild push. So instead, again, you see the head, right? It's obviously too far forward. You're looking at, he's here, 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 right? You can see there's a big difference. You want to see that knee collapsing. So so basically, this is why we say you have to set, there's no pillar 5 here, right? So he's getting in a power position, and he's already, the body's moved forward too far into the delivery position. And what one of the telltale signs for gliders is, remember, again, you see where the head, it looks like it's over the knee, but his hips are so far back here that when he starts to go, you can see the head just goes so far in front. And when you look at other gliders, they keep this head on top, especially at this phase. You would see again the head sitting here, kind of on top, more on top of the knee. Okay, so again, the biggest thing is you want to set the angle first. So we would want to always create, going back to the start, we would go, instead of going kind of down here, you want to see this knee pushing to over to here. You want that knee over here versus that knee sitting here right on top of the foot. So if you look at some simple biomechanical points, the knee is sitting on top of the ankle instead of the knee sitting over the toe. Especially in the rotational throws, you need the knee in front of the toe in order to create fast rotation. If your knee is behind the toe, it's not going to rotate, it's going to shift as you try to rotate. And remember, you're trying to create rotation to get around before you can go linear. Now you can see that what he does is he's got a good active left, and so that's going to pull him, but he's pulled himself so far off the right that he's got the right idea of the upper body, but he didn't set the legs right. Okay, so this is a real common mistake I think that you see with young throwers. They don't understand how to set the angle. It requires more effort. It requires greater strength levels. So even with younger athletes, just hitting the position is going to be help develop very obviously throw specific strength, but you got to force that. And a lot of times when you have kids like this, you know, they're getting stronger and they're doing things, but to put yourself in that loaded position where again you see that knee kind of, you'd see everything more here. The beginning of the hips would be here, so again you're getting into that kind of position, so you'd see how everything's shifted. Okay, that loaded angle, this is specifically what you would be looking at, and that doesn't exist. And at that point, even if we draw our foot, right, you can see that the knee, how we would be drawing, would be over the toe. And again, that's going to help create faster rotation out of the lower body. This is creating shift. And again, even gliders, you're going to notice that heel elevating. So hopefully that makes a point. Key thing this boils down to is set the angle first. Don't shift from the weight on the left. Keep the weight on the right. You can create shift to the left, but stay predominantly more connected with the right. Okay, and when you do that, then you would shift over. So you can see that he's tapping the foot. It's almost the opposite. You want to be shifting, and then he does the tap. But see, when you see a thrower and they don't really tap this foot, that means they're not max. The tapping is the avoidance of tipping over, right? You're maximizing the angle. You're maximizing the greatest angle that way. And so there's kind of a natural tipping point, and that toe tap that you see with a lot of throwers is what keeps them from falling and going over the tipping point. So rule of thumb too is if the foot just stays too connected like that, it doesn't come up and down. You're not creating, you have to create that shift That kind of over and back is what you're looking for versus just loading and then trying to go, right? Shorter, longer path, more rotational. That makes a big difference. So set the angle first and get the athlete. Again, you can see it here, right? Way too far forward. Okay, so hopefully you guys find that helpful. And that's start improving those stand throws. You'll start having better transfer into the full throw.